The knock on my front door came just as everyone inside finished singing "Happy Birthday." I smiled politely, expecting another late guest, but the moment I opened the door, time stopped. Standing on my porch was the one person I had spent 15 years trying to forget and failing every single day. She wasn't carrying flowers, a gift, or even a birthday card. Instead, she held a tiny folded piece of faded notebook paper, protected inside a clear plastic sleeve like it was the most precious thing in the world. My heart recognized it before my eyes did. It was the childish promise we had written together when we were 20 years old. The promise that if we both reached 35 still single, we would marry each other. The words I had laughed about for years suddenly became heavier than anything I had ever carried. Before we continue this emotional journey, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that some promises are too meaningful to disappear, please take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who still believes in true love, and subscribe to Kindness Corner so you never miss another heart-touching story. At 20, life felt endless. We believe dreams always came true if you simply wanted them enough. Emily and I were inseparable through college. We studied together, celebrated every tiny victory together, and comforted each other through every disappointment. Everyone assumed we were dating, but we insisted we were just best friends. The truth was much more complicated. We loved each other deeply, but we were both terrified that admitting it would destroy the friendship we treasured. So we joked instead. On one rainy afternoon, hiding inside the campus library while waiting for the storm to end, we scribbled our names on a torn page from an old notebook and added one ridiculous sentence. If we're both still single at 35, we'll marry each other. We laughed so hard that the librarian nearly threw us out. She folded the note carefully and slipped it into her wallet. I never imagined she would actually keep it. Life, however, had no interest in following our plans. After graduation, I accepted a job across the country. She stayed behind to care for her mother after a serious illness changed everything overnight. We promised to stay close, but distance has a quiet way of stealing even the strongest friendships. Phone calls became monthly. Messages became holiday greetings. Eventually, silence replaced both. Every now and then I searched her name online, wondering if she had married someone, started a family, or simply forgotten that awkward boy who once shared impossible dreams with her. Every search ended with more questions than answers. The years that followed looked successful from the outside. My career grew. I bought a house. Friends admired the life I had built. Yet every achievement felt strangely incomplete. Relationships came and went. Some ended because we wanted different futures. Others ended because I compared every woman, unfairly, to someone who no longer existed in my daily life. I convinced myself I wasn't waiting for Emily. I was simply unlucky. But birthdays always reminded me of that old promise, and every 31st, 32nd, 33rd, and 34th birthday carried the same quiet thought. I wondered where she was. Turning 35 felt different. My friends insisted on throwing a birthday party. They decorated my living room with balloons, music, and laughter, determined to celebrate the milestone. I smiled through every conversation, but part of me couldn't ignore the date. 35. The age written on a piece of notebook paper 15 years earlier. I almost laughed at the memory before the knock interrupted everything. Emily looked older, of course. So did I. Life had painted gentle lines around her eyes, but they were still the same warm eyes that had always made people feel safe. She looked nervous, almost as though she expected me to close the door. Instead, neither of us spoke for several long seconds. She simply placed the old note in my hands. The paper had yellowed with age. The handwriting was messy and unmistakably ours. Tiny coffee stains marked one corner. A fold had almost torn through the middle. Somehow, despite 15 years of life, disappointment, and uncertainty, that fragile promise had survived. She finally explained why she had come. Her mother had passed away 3 years earlier. Caring for her had consumed the best years of Emily's adulthood, but she never regretted the sacrifice. There had been opportunities to marry, yet every relationship eventually faded beneath responsibilities she couldn't abandon. Recently, while cleaning old boxes in her childhood home before selling it, she discovered the note hidden inside the same wallet she had carried since college. Looking at the date, she realized something astonishing. My birthday was only a week away. She almost ignored it. Almost convinced herself it was childish. But something in her heart refused to let a promise disappear without at least being acknowledged. Hearing her story stirred emotions I had buried beneath years of routine. I admitted that despite everything I had accomplished, loneliness had become my most faithful companion. I had spent years pretending independence was enough. In truth, success meant very little when there was nobody who truly understood the journey behind it. She nodded with quiet understanding because she had lived the same loneliness in a different form. Neither of us had remained single because we couldn't find someone. We remained single because life had asked us to become people we never expected to be. The party inside continued without us for a while. My friends eventually noticed I had disappeared and peeked through the window. They didn't interrupt. Somehow they understood that whatever conversation was happening outside belonged to another lifetime. We sat together on the front porch, watching the evening sky slowly trade blue for gold. Instead of talking about romance, we remembered ordinary moments. Cheap coffee after class. Long walks across campus. The time we got caught in the rain and laughed until we couldn't breathe. Those memories reminded us that love isn't always built through grand gestures. Sometimes it grows quietly through years of shared ordinary moments. As darkness settled, Emily admitted something that broke my heart. She confessed she almost turned around 3 different times while driving to my house. She feared discovering I had forgotten the promise. Even worse, she feared I had forgotten her. I realized then how courage often looks nothing like confidence. Sometimes courage is simply knocking on a familiar door after years of silence, risking rejection for the chance to honor a promise. The following weeks weren't a fairy tale. We didn't rush into romance because of an old note. Instead, we started rebuilding what time had taken away. We met for breakfast. We talked for hours. We learned about the people we had become instead of clinging to who we used to be. There were awkward moments, painful conversations about lost years, and tears over opportunities that would never return. But honesty replaced fear, and friendship slowly transformed into something stronger than either of us had imagined when we were 20. One autumn afternoon, I framed the old notebook paper instead of hiding it away again. Not because it guaranteed a happy ending, but because it reminded us that some promises are less about destiny and more about having the courage to return when life gives you another chance. A month later, standing beneath a tree whose leaves glowed deep shades of orange, I asked Emily whether she wanted to stop calling it an old promise and start calling it our future. This time there was no joke, no nervous laughter, and no fear of ruining a friendship. There was only peace. She smiled through tears, took my hand, and together we finally chose the life we had unknowingly been walking toward all along.